If you're tired of these promos, supporters get the podcast early and ad-free. Just go to donate.bogosity.tv for the links to sign up. Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the week of May 16, 2021, the podcast that invented the karaoke silencer. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's perambulate the news of the Bogus. So by now you're all familiar with the DarkSide ransomware that took down the Colonial Pipeline and caused a gasoline shortage throughout the southeastern United States. Apparently this was a lot more than they had wanted when they started offering ransomware as a service. They wrote on their dark web blog, quote, "We are apolitical. We do not participate in geopolitics. Do not need to tie us with a defined government and look for other motives. Our goal is to make money and not creating problems for society. From today, we introduce moderation and check each company that our partners want to encrypt to avoid social consequences in the future." Now they've announced that they're closing up shop after they found their servers to be inaccessible and their money transferred to an unknown account. Somebody hacked the hackers. See, you messed with Big Oil's profits and this is what happens. They said that they were releasing decryption keys and utilities for all of the companies that have been ransomed but who haven't paid. No word yet on whether or not that includes Colonial Pipeline. The press is reporting that they paid the ransom, but as of this podcast prep, all of the sources for that trace back to Bloomberg, who cites two anonymous sources, and we've seen in the past how skeptical we should be of those. But apparently some of their messages were written by one of the creators of the REvil ransomware, which we've talked about before, and this would seem to verify speculation that the DarkSide members are tied to the REvil gang. The REvil spokes whatever said that they were putting new restrictions on the kinds of organizations that could be held for ransom, mirroring the pledge that DarkSide had made earlier in the week. Affiliates will also have to get approval before launching the attack. The situation has also caused Russian cybercrime forums such as XSS to distance themselves from ransomware completely. As their administrator explained, quote, "There's too much publicity. Ransomware has gathered a critical mass of nonsense, bullshit, hype, and fuss around it. The word ransomware has been put on a par with a number of unpleasant phenomena, such as geopolitical tensions, extortions, and government-backed hacks. This word has become dangerous and toxic." I think it's more than just the word that's the problem, sunshine, but whatever. But the cybersecurity firm Intel 471 says we haven't seen the last of ransomware. Quote, "It's likely that these ransomware operators are trying to retreat from the spotlight more than suddenly discovering the error of their ways. A number of the operators will most likely operate in their own close-knit groups, resurfacing under new names and updated ransomware variants. Additionally, the operators will have to find a new way to wash the cryptocurrency they earn from ransoms. Intel 471 has observed that BitMix, a popular cryptocurrency mixing service used by Avedon, DarkSide, and REvil, has allegedly ceased operations. Several apparent customers of the service reported they were unable to access BitMix in the last week. If you're just an annoyance to a few firms, you can get paid the ransom and make some unearned money being a scumbag. But if you target hospitals, government agencies, or critical infrastructure, then you'll get a lot more attention than you'd want to have. Really, guys, if you want to engage in extortion and destroying the economy, do it the legal way. Become politicians! If you're looking for ways to support this channel, but you don't have any spare cash and you can't stand advertisements, you can do so by generating your own cryptocurrency. Use the links at the bottom of the description to listen to the podcast and all of my videos on bittube.tv or lbry.tv to get cryptocurrency for the creator and yourself. Or if you listen to the podcast at the podcast page, you'll also generate crypto. You can also go to airtime.bogosity.tv to get the airtime extension and generate crypto for yourself and the creators on the web anywhere you go, including my YouTube channel. Get 5 tubes free just for installing the extension and signing up, and then simply browse the web as normal. Easily monetize your favorite creators and yourself with cryptocurrency without advertising on bittube.tv or lbry.tv or with the airtime extension at airtime.bogosity.tv. Meanwhile, another victim of a ransomware attack is the DC Metropolitan Police Department, and in making good on the double threat ransomware attackers have been engaging in, their refusal to pony up the dough resulted in Bogus Ransomware releasing sensitive personnel records of 20 officers, including not only social security and driver's license numbers, financial data, and fingerprints, but also the results of psychological exams. Bogus demanded $4 million in exchange for a promise not to publish any more information and provide an encryption key to restore the data. Check out what they told them, quote, "You are a state institution. Treat your data with respect and think about their price. They cost even more than $4 million. Do you understand that?" "Yeah, listen to your mother." The MPD replied, "Our final proposal is to offer to pay $100,000 to prevent the release of the stolen data. If this offer is not acceptable, then it seems our conversation is complete. I think we understand the consequences of not reaching an agreement. We are okay with that outcome." "This is unacceptable from our side," the hackers responded, "but I'm sure they'll get over it." Of course, it takes some chutzpah to do this to a police force, especially when they can pay you in traceable funds. Also nice to know the police can't even protect themselves from criminals, let alone us. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. Hey, guess what? If you print money, inflation happens. If your response to that is, well, duh, then you're not only ahead of the politicians, but also a lot of economists and financial advisors who seem surprised to note that that's what's actually happening. As should be no surprise to anyone who's been paying attention, or indeed anyone who doesn't blindly believe everything the Fed says, we've had incredible increases in asset prices, and what's happening next is higher prices in day-to-day living. Anyone who does their own grocery shopping has seen that over the last few decades and noticed how much worse it's gotten lately. Unfortunately, the last to follow is wages, since they're stickier than prices, and so this inflation really ends up being a loss of purchasing power for the working class, while the politicians and their cronies make out like bandits. That's why it's not only called the inflation tax, but also the most regressive tax ever. And now it's gotten so bad that not even government can manipulate the numbers into looking good. The Consumer Price Index rose at an annual 4.2%, the highest since 2008. The monthly rate from March to April was 0.8%, which is indicative of double-digit inflation by the end of 2021. The Fed can do all it wants to keep blaming the supply chain and pin-up demand as excuses to keep a lot of the increasing consumer prices out of the inflation figures, but some might be forgiven for thinking that the trillions of dollars they've created out of thin air and pumped straight into the economy might play a little bit of a role as well. It also means that, while things like stocks will appear to soar over the next year, their actual value in terms of purchasing power will actually be smaller. And foreign investors are noticing and responding. After China's worrying CPI reports, the FTSE 100, a UK index based on the London Stock Exchange, dropped after Boris Johnson announced an easement of COVID restrictions. The German DAX and the French CAC also fell by comparable rates. The movement is largely based on fears that American CPI will prove to be much bigger than what the Fed is targeting. U.S. stocks dropped across the board in London after dropping stateside in the Dow, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq. Similar drops were also seen in commodities such as oil and copper. On the other hand, Gold rose over 3% this week and silver 5%, indicating that yes, inflation is the fear. The dollar is now at a 10-week low compared to the pound. So the question is, how long is it going to take for politicians and pundits to finally acknowledge the reality of inflation?
Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins.
And now it's time to pre-signify this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And this week it goes to Liz Cheney for her role in spreading yet another discredited story about Russia, this one designed to block the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. The CIA cooked up a bogus narrative that Russia was paying Taliban fighters to kill U.S. troops, which the New York Times dutifully published last June, right after Trump announced he was pulling U.S. troops out of Afghanistan. That story gave pro-war Democrats and Republicans justification for blocking the withdrawal. Now that it's come out that the story never even happened, Fox News' Brett Baier asked Cheney about her role in spreading the story. She backtracked, saying that she kept using the word if and therefore she wasn't giving the story any credibility. It's her credibility that's lacking. Her claims that she only spoke of this story conditionally are easily shown to be a pack of lies. She and Adam Schiff were at the forefront of spreading this story as gospel truth, following the example of her father, Dick Cheney, who would leak bogus information to the New York Times to justify war, and then go on Meet the Press and cite the Times stories as though they were independent confirmation. The story that she posted on her website was absolutely without conditionals. Quote, "After today's briefing with senior White House officials, we remain concerned about Russian activity in Afghanistan, including reports that they have targeted U.S. forces. It has been clear for some time that Russia does not wish us well in Afghanistan. We believe it is important to vigorously pursue any information related to Russia or any other country targeting our forces. Congress has no more important obligation than providing for the security of our nation and ensuring our forces have the resources they need." As if that weren't enough, consider that, after Trump announced the withdrawal plans, she held a press conference to explicitly threaten Russia that, quote, "Any targeting of U.S. forces by Russians, by anyone else, will face a very swift and deadly response." The phrase that doesn't seem to show up anywhere is, "if these reports are true." She repeatedly used this story to justify U.S. troops in Afghanistan and to defeat anti-war voices such as Democrat Tulsi Gabbard and Republican Matt Gaetz. And now, also following Daddy's example, she's lying to distance herself from a story that she herself vociferously promoted. Of course, the news media is still holding her up as a stalwart defender of truth for daring to stand up to Trump. They don't say why, of course, because that would show them to be warmongering liars just like Cheney herself. So all of that makes Liz Cheney this week's biggest Bogon emitter. I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear.
To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to get them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Bogosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Bogosity.tv.
And now let's institutionalize this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
And this week, it goes to the New York Times for blatant misinformation about the gasoline shortages resulting from the DarkSide hack of the Colonial Pipeline. They tweeted, "Colonial Pipeline, a vital U.S. fuel artery that was shut down by a cyber attack, said it hoped to restore most operations by the end of the week. Since the shutdown, there have been no long lines or major price hikes for gas." Of course, anyone who lives in the affected area, including your not-so-humble podcast host, will tell you otherwise. There were long lines basically at every gas station that wasn't completely out, and price hikes of $5 a gallon, and in some cases even $9. It's all part of the news media's bizarre narrative that there is no shortage, that the complete shutdown of over 5,500 miles of pipeline delivering 3 million barrels of fuel a day that an entire section of the country depends on has no effect on anything whatsoever. Nothing is happening. You're in error. Go back to your lives. Or maybe it's just that New York Times columnists didn't personally experience anything bad, so it must not have happened. When that narrative failed, they switched to it being a result of panic buying. But while stupid and ridiculous amounts of panic buying absolutely occurred, no one seemed to have an answer for how panic buying stops tankers from showing up with more gasoline on schedule. It's funny how even the Times story they linked to in their tweet acknowledged that, quote, "In the meantime, drivers in Tennessee, Georgia, and elsewhere have been panic buying gasoline, exacerbating shortages with their fears. The price of gas has shot up in several states." But hey, didn't that tweet, which again linked to this exact story, say that there were no shortages and were no major price hikes? But hey, don't worry, because the ubiquitous unnamed experts have spoken, quote, "Experts say the reaction this time, however, is out of proportion with the actual risk." Sometimes I think the Wikipedia note citation needed was made for the New York Times. It's also weird that no one wants to say, hey, maybe pipelines are important and Biden shouldn't have shut down the Keystone Pipeline after all. Not to mention the fact that it's now extremely difficult for them to even find drivers. Is there any chance in the Biden administration that we'll see gas get below $2 a gallon the way it was under Trump? And I don't get this opposition to pipelines. Why is it better to drive gasoline around in tankers, burning diesel fuel in the process, than it is to just shove it through a pipe with no real extra pollution? Leftists never make any sense to me. So all of that makes the New York Times this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well, that wraps up this There's Nothing So Boring as Waiting for the Apocalypse edition of the Bogosity Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support, and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at Patreon or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Matt Taibbi. "We in the media have spent decades turning the news into a consumer business that's basically indistinguishable from selling cheeseburgers or video games. You want bigger margins? You just cram the product full of more fat and sugar and violence and wait for your obese, overstimulated customer to come waddling forth." The Bogosity Podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now.